4 years ago, I ran my last marathon, and 6 months ago, I won World's Strongest Man. I think it's a point of interest because it's a unique background, I suppose, but I thought I'd dive a little bit into exactly how that occurred, some timelines, some lifts while I was doing running, maybe a bit of background before that as well, because I don't want people to take from my story that, you know, anyone could be world's strongest man and there's someone running marathons right now who's going to be the world's strongest man, or if you want to be a strong man, you have to go run. But let's get into it. So in 2013, I went to the University of Guelph to play football. That didn't last very long. 2014, I stacked on a whole bunch of weight and then decided I had to lose it. 2015, I lost it, and I did a bodybuilding show, I believe the summer of 2015. After that, I wasn't real sure what I wanted to do, and during that whole time, like even when I played football, I always wanted to do 1 rep maxes. I always wanted to lift heavy in the gym. That was just what I was inclined to do. So after bodybuilding, I decided I'd start distance running, which just came out of a desire to eat a lot of food and not put on a whole lot of weight. Naturally, I'm just someone who I have no problem eating, no problem with appetite. Even at 325, I have to make sure that I don't keep getting bigger. So I started running, and naturally, the first day I went out, I ran 10K with no real background, which is I'm just very fortunate in that space. And the reason I chose running is because my mom was a marathon runner. I gave myself about 6 months to run my first marathon, and that was in 2016, 2017. That was the Ottawa Marathon, and my first one was actually my best, so 3 hours, 24 minutes. That puts me, I believe, in about the top 10% of my age category. So I was a good marathon runner, but I was not a great marathon runner. I wanted to qualify for the Boston Marathon, which was 3 hours and 5 minutes or less, and I just couldn't do it. The next year, I ran 2 more marathons. I ran the Ottawa Marathon again, and I ran the Toronto Marathon, and those, I finished in about 3:30 both times. My last one, when I decided to call it quits, was 3 hours and 35 minutes. It was my worst one, and that was because my first half I ran in 1 hour 24 minutes. I was on pace to run a 2 hour 48 marathon, which sounds really good unless you've run a marathon before and you know what a disaster that becomes. So I was sort of disenchanted with running after that. I thought I was never going to be great. So, and I was about 225, 230 pounds at the time. From there, I spent about a year not knowing what I was going to do. Athletically, I was in the process of getting accepted into university overseas, and really didn't really consider what event I was going to do next, but I knew that I wanted to do something else. Again, I was 225, 230 pounds, and I went to Australia at about that weight, and I started to powerlift. I remember trying to make the choice when I started powerlifting, do I cut to the 105s, which is like 234 pounds, or do I go to the 120s, which is 265 pounds? And I decided to go up, and I started eating a bit more, and I was only able to get to around 260 pounds when I started powerlifting. When I ran marathons, my lifts were, I could deadlift probably 550, I could squat maybe 400, maybe 365, and bench like maybe 275. So those are sort of the numbers I was starting with. I could overhead press about 245. Yeah, around that, push press. So I started powerlifting. I did that for a little while, and I just took to the strength really well. I didn't have any major injuries for the first little bit, and I was able to get my first 700-pound deadlift. I was able to get my first 400-pound bench press, and I was able to squat. I don't think I ever quite got there, but I was very close to squatting 700. And that was IPF rules, sleeves, all of that. Somewhere in there, I was back in Canada, had a massive back injury. That set me back a little bit. But basically, I got my weight up to 260, 265, and we're talking around 2018, 2019. The guys at my gym, before the National Powerlifting Championship, there was an Arnold qualifier, and they sort of egged me into doing it. So I did that like 2 weeks before the National Powerlifting Championship. I won the show, qualified for the Arnold in Australia, did my last powerlifting meet, decided that I was done with it, and decided I was really going to commit to bulking up and getting bigger. Pretty quickly, I got myself to 300 pounds, 310 pounds, and just went full bore into strongman. So that's sort of the story of marathon to strongman. From 230 pounds to 315 pounds. I'm 325 now. Just put on a little bit more weight over the last couple of years. But it's not an overnight thing. And I was lifting heavy through the entirety of that. I was an okay marathon runner. I think most people who are athletic could put the time and dedication into anything and get to the top 10%. So that's the story. It was a lot of work. It wasn't easy, but it also took a lot of time. So hope that gives a little bit of clarity. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Leave a moose chopping if you got to this point. As per usual, lift heavy, be kind. Merch link in the bio, and we'll catch you next time.